Creating a map for your world is one thing, but creating a map for a city is a whole other beast entirely. So let's talk about a tool that can help you do that very quickly. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner, and welcome back to the Daily D20, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. If you like what you see on this channel, I invite you to hit the subscribe button and the notification icon so you can get notified whenever I upload a new video, which is every day. So today is Tooltip Tuesday, and I found this fantastic tool just recently. It showed up on Reddit, and I looked at it, and I was like, this is amazing. I need to tell you guys about it. So here I am sharing you the Fantasy City Generator. It's an online tool designed to help you make maps of your fantasy cities. Now when you look at a city map that's been drawn in either a Dungeons & Dragons module handbook or in one of the Pathfinder adventures or any role-playing game setting adventure, these city maps are pretty detailed, and there's a lot of small little parts. There's tons of buildings, there's roadways. The average dungeon master, when they have to create a new city, is not going to have the time to sit and go over each city and each little aspect of their city that they're building. So this generator was designed to help people quickly create a map for a new city that they've created. Now I'm going to put the link in the description below because it's actually pretty complicated for me to remember, and I will have it here on the channel so you can read it at least. Or you could just go down below and click the link. But this thing is really cool, and we're going to go over a couple of the features and tools that it has that can help you build your city. Now when you load up the website, you'll see that it's a really simple interface, and there's just a few buttons you can push to generate new cities, and basically every time you click a button, it's going to give you something new. So we're basically going to just go over these buttons and what they do to help you decide the best choice for your city. First up, of course, you have the small, medium, and large cities. These cities range from small hamlets, more villages, all the way up to the big metropolis sprawling cities such as Waterdeep and Neverwinter that are found in the Dungeons & Dragons worlds. Just by clicking the small, medium, and large, you can already get the idea of how big these cities can actually be. They can be massive and extend out beyond the edge of your screen if you pick the large size, or they can be very small and you'll zoom in on the much smaller villages that you can make. But each time you click a size, it generates a new town. Now then you have the options that come up that help you customize what your town has to offer. First, we're going to talk about the layout. There are some layout buttons here, or there is a layout category, and then inside there's several buttons that are basically checkboxes. You can have them or you cannot have them. There's not a lot of ways to customize these from this point, but it's good to understand what each button does so you can get the right assets in your town. First up, there's more roads, and this just does that. This adds more roads to your town. So if it's checked, you're going to have more roads. If it's not checked, you're going to have less roads. Next up is farmlands. Outside of your town, they might have farmers, they might have little houses and such outside. This will show the farmlands, usually through lines or other means, and kind of denote where these farms are. If it's unchecked, it removes it from your map. The elevation option is kind of weird. It's supposed to give a little bit more depth by shading in between the buildings and on the edges of the rivers, but most people don't really see a difference. I only really see the difference when I'm looking at the rivers, but I just leave it checked because why not? It doesn't hurt anything. There is a checkbox right here that says random. Now when this is selected, you'll see the rest of the options on this list are not available to you, and that's because this is saying we are purely making a random city. If you uncheck this box, then you'll have all these other options, which we're going to go over. The Citadel option adds a random castle into your town. It is a walled castle, usually kind of on the outside of the city, but it basically just creates a place for a rich person to live or a king, something like that, surrounded by walls on all sides. The Plaza option creates kind of a town square. Now, if you have a small village, this just creates one town square in the middle of the village. If you go up to the larger size, the big size towns, you have multiple, because when you click this, it can add multiple to your town, and by unselecting it, it just kind of removes them. Town squares are kind of a central hub for most villages, so in my opinion, it's a good idea to have these in your town all the time. The temple option creates a larger building. You can see most of the buildings in these maps are a lot smaller, but the temple option creates one larger one that can be used as a large temple to the deity that the people in the town may worship, or any other number of reasons that you may come up with. It just creates a larger building that is just one solid structure. The wall option is there to add or remove walls. If you want the city to just be out in the open without the protection of walls, you can take them off. You don't need them. But if you do have this selected, it will put a wall around the city, which is good for protection against the raiders or other outside forces that might be trying to get into the city. The option for Shantytown is a little weird. These towns don't always fit within the city wall anyway, but Shantytown just extends it even further, adds more houses on the further outside edges of the town, more in the roads, and it makes it feel more like, instead of being a central structured town, it's a little more looser knit and more spread out. Then of course there's the river and the coast options, and these add or take out those things exactly. If you want a river running by your city, there you go, you can have a river. If you want a coastline on your city, you can have a coastline. This is great if it's on the border of a large lake, or even on the coast of some island or continent. You can have the oceans right there, and it's pretty handy to have. You don't have to use these, but the option is there. Next, I want to talk about the style section of this tool. Now here, you have the palette, which is all the different color schemes you can have. It has the watercolor option, but the other options are very neat. They have the black and white, they have a kind of a blueprint, which is a blue tinge to it. They have different color schemes for different types of style you might want. The black and white is really useful if you want to use this in other tools, in other creative programs, but then you can also make a colored version where each section of the city is in its own color, which makes it really easy to determine what is there. The annotations option is just that. It adds the annotations to the city. If you want to use the name and the sections that this generator created for you, this is the option to keep open because it just adds the words on there for you. It also gives you the chance to change the scale of the font, so you can make the words larger or smaller, and you can pick what to display. So if you want the name of the town on your map and not the wards or the sections of the town, you can do that. If you'd rather have just numbers and a legend on the side that tells what these sections are, you can do that also. It's a few options, but it gives you the chance to customize it to your own liking, including also a scale. It keeps a small scale at the bottom that tells you how big this city actually is. The hatching option is good if perhaps maybe you don't have a color printer and you want to still denote your different wards. The hatching uses lines going in different ways to shade in the houses and the buildings, as opposed to using colors. The thin lines option basically takes all the dark lines around the city and makes them a little bit thinner, so there's less thick black lines surrounding everything. The towers options give you a couple ways of your wall towers can be. So you'll see on the walls, they have small sections. These are the towers. They can be squares or circles or more triangle shapes. It depends on your liking, but you can select what type that you want using this here button. There is an option to customize the buildings a little more. It's not super powerful, but you can choose to go with a simple, more blocky structure or a more complex, more random structure for each of your individual buildings, which I personally like the complex. It adds a little more interest to the world. And then there's the water option that allows you to have kind of ripple lines, we'll call them. It shows lines that denote kind of the tide of the river, or you can simplify it even more by making the edges of the rivers more blocky or straight lines, or you can just leave it normal and have curvy lines. It's up to you using the water options. And the last thing I want to show you about this is my favorite tool. I think it's called the warp tool, and basically you can generate a city, and more likely than not you can hit these buttons over and over and over again and you will not get the exact city you want, but with the warp tool you can get a lot closer. You select the warp tool and it will give you a couple concentric circles that as you hover over your map, you'll see some red lines and some white dots. And as you click on these white dots, you'll be able to move them around and it will affect the city and the building structure that you have in place. The red lines generally run through the streets, so when you move the white dot, you're moving the red lines, you're moving the streets and changing the structure of your town. This is a really cool feature when you can randomly generate a town that's close to what you want, but maybe you want that one feature that didn't show up, and then you can customize the streets to make that happen in your city map. Very cool. Probably my favorite part of this whole program is that warp feature. Then after you're all done with your map, you can export it either as a PNG file, which is a image file that you can open in any image editor, whether it be Microsoft Paint or Photoshop or GIMP or any of the number of editors out there, or there's a SVG file, which is more of a vector graphic. So if you're familiar with Adobe Illustrator or other similar vector programs, you can open it in there and create really high quality vector images of your map. Now that you know how to make a city very quickly, Tell me about your city. Go create one on this. It's free to use, so why not? Tell me about your city in the comments below. What makes it special and what makes it interesting to you? If you've liked this video, go ahead and hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel so you can get more videos when they come out every day. And as always, fellow Game Masters, I've been Richard Quiner. Thank you for watching.